Hey, welcome to Jam the Hype Live, where we help Christian urban artists effectively influence modern culture to live lives transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm your host, George Moss, joined by my co-host, creative director from Urban Youth Workers Institute. What's up, Cherie?
What's up? It was my birthday yesterday.
I know, happy birthday.
Thank you.
I saw you out there on Instagram, out there on your pedal board, ready to celebrate.
Yes, I was on my paddleboard. I made my husband get on with me, and he was not feeling it. He was like, I'll do it for you. Afterwards, he was like, I didn't like it. I don't want to do it.
How do you not like it? I don't get it.
He thought it was too much solitude, too much calm. He was like, I want more adventure.
Oh, got you.
So in 2 weeks, we're gonna jet ski to Catalina Island. Hopefully that's enough adventure. Hopefully we shoot as well. Just kidding.
That'll be dope. That'll be dope. You guys doing all the California adventures.
Right.
Man, so it's been a crazy couple of weeks. Sorry for last week. My internet kind of dropped out. It's just kind of doing this whole it's still so crazy that we're still in this season of like doing Zoom calls instead of doing things face to face, and like this pandemic and stuff that's going on. And at the same time, there's all this protests and unrest and crazy stuff that's going on as well. And I feel like after the few weeks of like really getting settled into this, we have to like come back to center. Like we've kind of been in chaos, now coming back to center. Like, what are we here to do? Like, what has God called us to do? And how are we supposed to live in this world and be effective in this world? So as we're talking about this subject of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, we talked about last week with Bree K, a brand new producer, artist that's kind of at the beginning of her career. She's kind of getting out there doing stuff very unique. This next guest that I wanted to bring onto the show is kind of gone a little bit further down the road to where, you started and you kind of try to find what you're good at, what you're not good at, and how to find where you're at. And I think for any artist, it's really difficult to find your lane, to find where you actually fit in within the music industry, within the industry as a whole, because places like YouTube, TikTok, any of social media is also overcrowded right now. So finding that space where you can actually live and breathe, I think that's the most difficult thing to find as an artist. You as an artist, Sheree, like what did it take, I can't talk right now, for you to kind of like settle into somewhere where you're like, okay, I found that niche, like we talked about last week, where you found those little girls and that's like, I'm a winner. Like
Yeah, I think, it constantly just goes back to testing out your voice and playing with your audience and seeing who your audience is. I'm in a coaching class right now, and my coach basically just said, to life coach, leadership coach, he said, Sheree, don't be afraid of your audience. Play with them. It's a playground. Put something out there, see how people respond, and you'll get the feedback you need. So that's what I'm doing right now. And there's been some feedback I've gotten, which has helped me now prepare for my next project that I'm going to do. I'm going to release a single, and I have 90 days to do it. So,
oh man,
called Let Love Begin. So I'm working on it.
That's super exciting to hear that. I've got a few projects that I've been working on as well. I think it's just kind of like after you've kind of gone through all this, you feel like you finally can figure out what you're going to say without just kind of like popping off and saying what you really think. At the moment, you got to process a little bit, at least for me. And but one thing that I'm excited about is having this guy on, because so I met him, man, many years ago. He used to be a friend. I was touring with this band, We Are Leo. We toured with this band, We Are Leo, and we went to Detroit, and we got connected by my friend Andrew, connecting me with this kid Trey. I was like, man, this kid Trey is a rapper at my church, and you should reach out to him. So we texted a little bit here and there, back and forth, and then over the years, kind of built relationships. And I think that's one of the biggest things I can't stress enough, is that a lot of times things come with relationship, and it comes over years of knowing people. It comes over years of showing up to different events, seeing people here and there. And then you don't just jump in and try to like work with people or, try to get on or something. But what I've seen is a young rapper, super talented from Detroit, which is saturated with really dope rappers and lots of talent. But to be able to come into his own, to be able to find his own lane, to where he's able to finally get kind of not just be at that sort of new artist level, but actually is a point where it's like he's got a voice and he's starting to make some impact. really dope dude. Has been making a huge impact in his city, in Detroit, and around the world. I want to welcome to the show my homie, Trey Little. What's up, Trey?
Right,
What up?
Trey?
What up? Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, bro. So, bruh, like you've been killing it right now on social media, and I want to get into you leading a lot of protests and stuff going on in your city, being able to use your platform and your voice to be able to be a leader in that space. But before you got to that space, Trey Little, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, had the same thing happen. Probably wouldn't have had the most prominence as you have right now. What was it like for you, kind of like just starting out and getting to the point where you found a voice and found a lane where people are actually listening to you?
Man, that's a really good question. So for me, the start was like usually every other artist who grow up with the passion and interest of music. And for me, I didn't have any money. I came from a pretty rough background. Mom had me at 15, lost my dad at 4. So for me, like I grew up on the streets a lot, kind of soaking in the street culture of Detroit. And as I got older, I noticed that I had a talent of rapping and I wanted to invest in it. So I would take $5, take it to one of the houses in my neighborhood and record for like $5 per song. And, like I began being interested in music when I was looking up to some of the artists being played on the radio or at some.
Bruh, they got a $5 song deal happening. Where's that at? I need to get to that.
It was like some hood stuff. And it was like, the guy really didn't even care about the engineering. He was just like, boop, 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 sitting back, just like whatever.
Yeah.
So, it allowed me to practice a lot and get like some like super like bootleg CDs burnt up and to practice. So, it was a lot of work. And as I got older, I stayed at it. I think I started rapping when I was like 9. I was just freestyling, like putting words together. And then 13 years old is when I started recording. All the way up to like 16 is when I got serious and actually started writing and producing projects and stuff like that. So I tried so many different things, but overall I just stayed at it. I stayed consistent from the 9-year-old Trey all the way up to 16, all the way up to where I'm at now. Like I just never gave up. And I always knew that as long as I keep working at this thing, more doors were going to open. And I didn't know the level it was going to go to. I just knew that I love doing this and this is what I was created to do, So I just stayed consistent and I did so many other things to where it was like, graphic designing and producing beats for other people and like, trying to edit videos and just really exploring so many different fields to see what was going to get me to the point that I felt like I was supposed to be at, So yeah, it was just consistency throughout my life, and just staying at it.
That's awesome, dude. So I met you in Detroit and
actually Saginaw.
Oh, that's right. We met there first, didn't we?
Yeah,
I got to know you in Detroit when I lived out there. And I just have to say, I'm super proud of you. I love your heart. Always have loved your heart. And I feel like, when I went to your house, what, two years ago for your birthday, your house party? And you just had a birthday, right?
Yeah. Like 3 days ago, the 17th. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, everybody have a birthday now.
Just seeing how you and your wife live and how you spend your life on behalf of other people, and you really are passionate about community, that who you are is just as dope as your art. And I know that that's important to you. And I think that's what's shining through when I look at what's happening in your life right now, is that you have the talent. You've always had the talent. You've always been out there doing it. But now who you are is being seen, and people are like, oh, we should, like, Trey's cool. Like Trey has a dope part. Like Trey actually has some deep things to say. So how do you feel about that now that you're kind of, well, first of all, if our viewers don't even know what I'm talking about, tell us kind of what's happened in the last 3 weeks. You've kind of had a come up moment.
Yeah. Man, that's good. Thank you for saying that. Like, I'm honored, because I feel like one of the big things is that, I've heard that like money and attention or money and fame just exposes who someone is. It necessarily doesn't change them. It just exposes who it is. So I look at it as like the more attention means like the more that I get to shed light on different issues in my city or different things that can help other up and coming artists get to like the point of, what they felt like it was made for or built for. So I just feel like, it's just more people that know about what I'm trying to do, So it's been unreal because I've always watched artists, go from that local artist and then they explode, and then it was even getting to a point where some of the artists I was close to, and I'm like, man, what does that feel like? What does it look like? And I was seeing artists kind of go away and never come back and to tell that story, because they got like wrapped up and busy in a lot of the traveling and stuff that they were doing. So for me, it's been amazing. And I think a big thing is that it's been hard to process it all because I've been so in the middle of it to where there's like news interviews every single day. There's protests. I just got done like 10 minutes ago meeting some of the like high-ranking officers in Detroit and feeding hundreds of kids in Detroit with like with Happy's Pizza, like stuff like that. I'm so busy like in the middle of it to where I'm like, I haven't been able to step back and grasp what's happening. Obviously, I'm aware of it, but it's more of like, okay, like there's so much stuff to get done that is like a lot of responsibility that is like almost like I haven't been able to enjoy, like for instance, shows and concerts. And like, I think when I get to do that stuff, then it'll hit me like, okay. But every now and then, like when I step out and go to the mall, like I was downtown at another protest. And for those who don't know, ever since the death of George Floyd, ever since like Juneteenth, there's been events like every single day and all around the world, you know, specifically in Detroit. So I think it's been like 25 days of us going out to events like straight every day, you know. So I've been in the midst of it, meeting all types of people, reporters, other influencers. So I was walking up the street and actually met I was like half awake. I was like so sleepy, and like a kid came up on me, was like, yo, I love your TikTok videos. And his dad was like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, no, man, like what's up? Like let's do some TikToks. And then another kid was like, whoa, I knew that was him. And they started coming up on me, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. And like I was like kicking it with their families, like, oh, is that your son? Like that's your daughter? Oh man, like that's your little sister and stuff like that, like hanging out with their families and stuff. And they were just so shocked that I'm like, that I was just kicking it with their family. And I'm like, man, and then it got even crazier when I was walking, and Carl Lentz, those who don't know, is the pastor at Hillsong. You know, he's the guy, I think baptized Justin Bieber, but he was like supposed to be coming in Detroit for a conference that we were doing. So I was supposed to meet him later that night. I look up right after I got done talking to the kids, see Carl Lentz walking right past me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy was on the Breakfast Club, like all that. So I introduced myself to him. And I'm like, I'm supposed to hang out with you tonight at the conference. He's like, oh yeah, what's your name? I'm like, Trey. He's like, wait, Trey Little? I was like, no. And I thought it was a joke. I'm like, Carl Lentz, like, I'm trying to introduce myself to you. And he's like, bro, my kid loves you. Like, everything you've been doing for the movement, all the protests, like my son, he looks up to what you're doing. You know, he wants to fight for justice, and he FaceTimed his family, and like his son was excited. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know, and I was so grateful because, you know, for me, I never thought that I would be alive, you know, because growing up where I grew up, it's like a lot of my friends are either dead or in jail. So the fact that I'm alive and to see all this, it's amazing, you know, and every single day, I'm just thankful. I'm thanking God for everything that's happening, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So I saw a picture of you on Instagram, and you were holding a sign that said, "This is my house." Tell me a little bit about that.
So that sign specifically came about when we were peaceful protests and nonviolent protests, and then later that night, people were coming from out of town all across the region to like basically, you know, tear junk up and make their voices be heard. And people had so many different agendas politically that wanted to like, that were super aggressive, that I felt like we really didn't need specifically in Detroit. It's like maybe Minneapolis, like that's a different story. But in Detroit, like, yo, man, we've worked so hard at building community with the police and the people. So I'm seeing all these kids come down here literally with fireworks, missiles, cocktails, all this stuff. And they were like antagonizing the police in our city, specifically Black police. And I seen that I had to go out there and like, you know, fight against a lot of that. So I made a sign. It was like, it'll be easier to hold this sign up. It said, Detroit is my home. Don't burn it down. Black Lives Matter. Like, you know, nonviolent protest. And it was a statement in itself, because I'm like, I want something that I can kind of hold up to let people know, yes, I'm still fighting for justice, but that doesn't mean that we have to brawl with the police or burn things down. So that sign in itself was a huge introduction on what introduced me to my mission to people around me. You know, it was on the news, and like, it was a picture of it floating around all over social media because people were snapping pictures of it and stuff. So that opened up a lot of doors to let people know my message about fighting for justice, but also not burning the city down, but actually building it up, because that's where we're at in Detroit, you know?
Yeah.
So what came first, really? I mean, I know you had the TikTok videos and stuff like that. I feel like, was that what really got you the platform in the first place, for people to listen to you when this opportunity of like a protest, or I would say opportunity, but this situation, this circumstance of George Floyd passing and all the stuff that's going on, to be able to kind of step in and be a leader in that space? You had a voice before that. What was it? What was your process of even getting your voice and establishing yourself even before something like this took place?
Yeah, man, and that's a good point, because like we said earlier, preparation meets opportunity is success. So it's like every single day you know, I was working hard, building up my catalog, dropping tons of videos on TikTok every single day, building up my voice, building up the movement that I was bringing, and like building up all these kids who believed in what I was doing. And you know, I think I got up to like 800,000 followers on TikTok, and I think I was at like 18,000 followers on Instagram. And you know, it was just consistent hard work, getting on TikTok, kind of figuring it out, belonging to the community before I decided to try to speak. As I was a smaller creator, I wanted to figure out what TikTok was, because, you know, we all know what the industry was like. It was like, you know, kind of PR. It was like Instagram, you know, capturing your best moments. And if you're the silly guy, you're the silly guy. If you're the serious guy, you're the serious guy. TikTok was like, all that's out the window. Like, you're just going to be goofy, have fun, and you're going to do all these different things that might be cringy. So I had to experiment with that and find my voice. I think I created like 1,000 videos maybe before, or like maybe 500 to 1,000 videos before I seen some sort of success, you know. And other people, like my boy Curtis Roach, he's like massive success. Like, he just did a song with Tyga, who was dating Kylie Jenner, you know what I mean? And he's like, he blew up, and he only had like 100 videos. So one of his voice, he was beating on the desk saying he's bored in the house because of the lockdown, and instant success, you know, over like, it's insane. So for me, it was more of like grinding every day, making like tons of videos, you know, and experimenting, belonging to the community, letting people know that like I was here, commenting, observing other people's stuff. And then when I started putting out content, and then this was a mistake I seen a lot of people do, start promoting themselves and their own music. A lot of people on TikTok didn't care about who I was prior to TikTok. You know what I mean? Even though I was already working for years, traveling, playing festivals, doing radio, meeting successful artists, people didn't care about that stuff. They wanted you to become a part of the, you know, the community. So I had to start from scratch on TikTok, started building that up. And then once I, you know, I think it took me like about 8 months to get like 800,000 followers, or like 9 months or something like that. And then once like the whole thing happened with George Floyd, it was like, I originally wanted to just go out to the protest. Like, I had no idea that I was going to be leading anything. Someone texted me and was like, hey, you want to go to a protest in Detroit? I said, sure. Went out there in March, and I seen the media, and this is kind of what took a turn. I seen the media kind of like, you know, only shedding light on certain things and trying to, you know, point fingers at the protesters for being some of the ones who were rioting or trying to start riots. So I'm like, yo, I have a big enough following to compete with the local media in Detroit. So let me get out there and actually get on the ground and start interviewing people personally on my social media. So that's when it went from like all the preparation that I was doing throughout the years, traveling, touring, radio, getting on TikTok. And it was like, yo, this moment right here is where I can use all of my past experience, all of my followers, to shed light on what's really happening on the ground in Detroit. And that's when both of it combined, and all of these people who were onlookers, because majority of the people were at home kind of like watching the news, worried about what was going to happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was someone that was giving people live feedback, live updates. So all these people started catching on. And it was like, I watched my platform go from just throwing whatever out there to finding more of like a strategic, like, oh, people want me to use my voice to like talk about things that will change systematic things that will benefit minorities and stuff like that. So it was almost like having more power, like, okay, because, you know, we see a lot of people get a lot of followers just for the sake of being famous or just having followers. And a lot of people want that. And even my wife said, you know, we both didn't want that for me to just get a bunch of followers just because like all of a sudden, like I jumped out a hot air balloon and survived. Now I got a bunch of followers. It was like, no, we want you to have followers for a purpose and something that's going to impact the world, you know? So that's kind of how that happened, you know?
Yeah. So you have a lot of strengths. I see your visuals are awesome. Your Instagram is awesome. Your music is great. Your artistry, it looks like, are you starting to do your own graphics now? Your Fight Justice, or who do you got working on your
so I got my homie Shamir creates. Yeah, he do a lot of my graphics and stuff like that. But a lot of them I'll do like my cover arts. I'll do like a lot of vintage edits. Detroit got a lot of abandoned buildings and graffiti, so I'll just take a bunch of photos on my iPhone and like do some graphic design on them and try to make them simple. But yeah, so I'll do some, and then Shamir does like some of the more cartoon animations and stuff like that.
I like it. And then you have the ability to communicate, and I feel like that's one thing TikTok has taught this generation is you've got to get a message across In literally what? How many minutes or how many seconds do you have on TikTok?
Usually I do 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
A minute sometimes, but that's a little too long. I do 15 seconds, and it was challenging to do 15-second messages. You know what I mean? Challenging, but it's working now once you get it. You know.
What I really appreciate what you're trying to say, man, is like all of this stuff. It was a preparation ahead of time. There was the, starting songs and doing like paying $5 an hour or $5 a song in the studio, but like consistently making song after song after song after song, going out on tour, meeting a bunch of people. It really can just, you grind for a long time. And then by the time you actually get to the point where you have the opportunity, people don't even care about the success, or people don't care, not necessarily, people don't care about the story of all it took for you to get there, but having those skills of releasing all those songs, like you need, basically, I'm like, you have to have like 100-song rule. Like if you haven't recorded 100 songs, don't expect to have any sort of success or following. Like if you haven't, made 100 TikTok videos, like that's 100, you did 500, like if you haven't had that catalog, I think it's just about just getting through that. To be able to find your lane in any situation, you have to just continue to do that thing. You're not going to read enough books. You're not going to watch enough YouTube videos. You're not going to hear enough interviews. You have to actually get up and actually start doing that. And that's what you actually did. Because I know you personally. I remember you taking shows for me that I couldn't do when you went out, drove across the country just to do a camp for, a few kids. Like you've done all that type of stuff, but it wasn't until you consistently done it over a long period of time. Even for us, we wouldn't have had this conversation had we not met 5-6 years ago, and we just consistently had conversations and built relationships. So over this time of building relationships, what's one of the things that makes an artist established? Like the idea of something that makes something established is they've been around for a long time. A tree, is established when its root system has been long enough to grow out and to grow. But even in that, like now that you're here and you're kind of like in this new space, you've had this whole success with like TikTok. And I feel like even in a year's time to grow from 0 to 800,000 people getting a message is unheard of in the history of the world. So that's still pretty fast. So with that though, there's a lot of things that, man, it seems like I'm giving this great opportunity, but there's a lot of things that you find out that exposes who you are as far as your goodness, but also it exposes some weaknesses in where you're at. So it's like, what is something that you feel is like you've missed some opportunities, or you're not been able to like really take things to the level that you really want to take them, or something like that, just because you weren't ready for all of the stuff that is finally came when it did come?
So basically, what's a weakness right now?
Yeah, I think a lot of the things for me that I've learned is like setting up like boundaries for sure. Cause man, like for me being an independent artist, like I don't have like management, I don't have representatives and all that. So it's like, I try to be a super nice guy. So when you're out just kind of walking around and people see you, they're like, yo, let me get a quick answer out of you right now. And I think a lot of the things I had to do is learn like, okay, how to say, I'm going to get back with you on that. Here's my email address. Like actually setting up those different boundaries to protect myself so that I can enjoy myself and be out in spaces and without making verbal agreements on the spot, because at the same time, like I don't want to make a verbal agreement with an artist and be like, oh, I'm going to help you out and mentor you. And then I forget that I said that. So it's like, I have to realize not to say things and remember how it felt when other people made promises or whatever that they couldn't keep. So it's like learning how to be out and also be wise with my words and to think about things and not make big decisions. And another thing, for instance, right? And it didn't bite me as hard as it could have, but it actually helped me. I was doing a TikTok video and I was in a Happy's Pizza store and the dudes was letting like random people come behind the counter from off the street. And I'm like waiting on my pizza and I'm like watching random people walk up like, hey man, y'all got a bathroom? And they're like, yeah, back here. And I was like, dang, they making my pizza. So I did a TikTok video and I was at 800K at the time. And I was just like sometimes I'll just be super loose, just like whatever, talking about whatever I want about companies or just making jokes, right? So I was like, yeah, I ain't never eating at this Happy's again. And I was joking, right? So I got an email from Happy's. I was like, oh man. Like, and then they actually was like, hey, we love your stuff. We would like to work with you. Like, come talk to us. And they actually wanted me to come in and help them with some stuff. So that's one example of many to where like I did a TikTok video in front of somebody's house that I know. and people were kind of like making a big deal out of it. Like, yo, why is this dude putting putting your house on social media with all these hundreds of thousands of people watching? So I think a big thing too is like, number one, making sure that I'm out and I'm not making promises or just making these verbal agreements, letting them fly loose. And I think on another end, my weakness was not being self-aware that like, yo, it's not bad that you have this following. It's okay to like understand and be self-aware where you're at, because I can't just be like pulling up to Wendy's, like cracking jokes about like the employee or whatever. And then all of a sudden, like 1 million people see it. You know what I mean? Like I had to become self-aware. Like, man, you are considered a company right now. You are considered an influencer. And I'm starting to get more views than what a lot of these companies get. And, I've had a lot of famous creators that I looked up to kind of come at me like, yo, man, like, what's up, bro? Like, and I was like, dang. So I had to get to a point where I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to be more selective with my words and, speak more positive and still be honest, but not just be loosely just cracking jokes like, oh, man, that's an ugly color in his hair right here that she got, or like stuff like that. It's like you got to be more, even if you're joking. So I think that was one of my weaknesses, like, making a lot of people mad just by being too loose with my platform and not realizing the weight that I hold, but I learned the hard way, and it could have been worse, but I reeled it back in. It was like, okay, let me be more selective, still have fun and enjoy myself, but make sure I'm aware that if I do this video, like millions of people could see it.
And I know your wife, she's not going to let you go out there and put yourself out there crazy. She's going to check you. So go ahead. Shout out to Jess. But listen, you're talking about not having management. So that could be a potential weakness, being self-aware, potential weakness, and talking about how it could cut into some of your opportunities. So we've talked about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, possibly cutting into some of your opportunities. And here's why. I always tell young influencers to say, look, just because you're an influencer does not mean you're a leader. What I hear you saying is I'm influencing people, but I need to make sure that I'm being a leader. Because when businesses come for opportunities and they want to bring you on, they're going to look for people to see where you're leading the audience. And I know you're a man of faith, you're a man of integrity and character. So tell us some of these. So you've had some looks like learnings with this. Now, what are some of the opportunities that are coming up now that you kind of are recognizing your lane is like, okay, you're not only an influencer, you need to be a leader. What's some of the opportunities that are coming up?
So almost every day I've been doing like interviews with like news and stuff like that, different TV opportunities. And like, big companies reaching out and other well-known people with big followers, they're starting to look at me as their peers. Like on TikTok is like a whole world for like the ninth grade all the way down to middle school. It's like,
you got, what, 8 million likes on there? 8 million?
Almost a million followers, like 26 million likes, and 60 million views in the last month, I think. So like that kind of stuff, like it's crazy because there are guys who DM me on a regular who, when I go look up their social blade on social media, like it shows like how much people make from YouTube. And one of the dudes who was DMing me, I looked up his social blade and it said he makes like, I think like 10 million a year or something like that. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Like, so the fact that they're taking me serious, and even with that, like I learned that like, yo, I'm not on their level whatsoever, but they like my message and they like what I stand for and they like my content. So I could only have 1 million. They could have, 10 million, but they still like what I do just because of, who I am. And I've been exposed to them. So it's just becoming peers with some of these other big TikTokers that I've personally looked up to, where 6 months ago, like these guys would have never seen my videos or never even knew I existed, So, and another thing too is like anywhere.
So you're getting friendships, but are you getting, how's it impacting your pocketbook? Because I know these brands be paying.
So brands are reaching out right now. It's a lot of like negotiating. A lot of it now is like, because it takes time to become a household name. You know what I mean? It takes time for people to recognize you. So a lot of the thing, people are offering stuff, but it's not stuff that I want to take. So the biggest thing I'm doing to monetize is my merch, my Spotify and all that. So I'm trying to bring my audience over to YouTube. So I'm about to have 1 million followers on TikTok any day now. So I'm trying to bring at least 100,000 of those people over to my YouTube channel, because, YouTubers, you can make anywhere from like 10,000 a month. Like, it's limitless, and then they're spending my music on Spotify, my merchandise. And then it shows, but with brands, they make offers. Like sometimes I'll take some of the offers, but a lot of times they're still catching up to who I am and how this thing works. So they offer money, but sometimes like it's money that I could go make quick, you know what I mean, elsewhere. So sometimes I don't accept those deals, just to kind of build my credibility up more, to be like, oh, you know, I can do this post for like, because right now, if you look up my analytic tool, I can charge up to like $700 to $1,000 for a post on TikTok. So like if Little Caesars is like, hey, can we do a campaign through your TikTok? I can say, sure, that'll be $1,000 per post, you know? So, and that's how much I'm worth right now. But I think it's going to it's going to take time for those people to catch on, to see, because anytime I post about something, my followers, like, they go eat it up. Or if I shout somebody out, it helps start their careers on TikTok. So, you know, the numbers are there, you know, so I think it's just going to take time for people to see me over and over and want to offer me more deals. But I'm seeing it today. You know what I mean?
I'm really glad that you understand that these type of things take time, because it took time for you to get to where you are right now. It took time of, you know, recording a whole bunch of songs. It took time with learning a bunch of different programs, learning how to do graphic design and video editing and all these other things that you don't even think, that you don't realize how much it plays into the opportunities. Because again, success is where opportunity and preparation meet. Like, and then if you have passion that goes into that, that's where you really find your purpose. But knowing all that stuff, you have all this stuff now, I can see that you have, you know, I think the worst thing that can happen is when people they've been working so hard and finally they kind of blow up and they're not prepared for all these opportunities that come up. And not only are these opportunities that are that they don't even know that they should have been preparing for, but there's a lot of people that want to give opportunities that will take advantage. You've all heard of bad management deals, bad booking deals, bad brand deals, and all those type of things. What are some of the things that you are using right now just to safeguard yourself from saying, like, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to be set up? Or have you even thought about, like, this is my price and I'm not doing anything else besides that? Like,
yeah. So one of the things I do, man, I'm blessed to have like relationships in my life, to where one of my closest friends, you know, she runs a super successful business where she has like these different accounts that she cleans for, like different like commercial companies that like her team come in and clean. So she makes good money. She's really good at negotiating deals. I got friends who are like CEOs and presidents of companies in Detroit. So like I constantly run ideas by them on a regular. I have other influencers that I talk to. So, and then my wife as well. So I always bounce anything off of like a specific group of like 4 people before I accept anything or decline something. Cause yeah, I've been declining more than accepting things, because, you know, some things aren't worth tying to my brand, you know what I mean? So I'm declining respectfully. And a big thing I do is give it time. You know, a lot of time people want to aggressively say, we need you to do this right now. And I'm like, well, if it's that important, it can wait. We can set it up and we can take time to talk through and figure it out. So like I said, since I'm independent, you know, I've had to set up those boundaries to say, you know what, let me run this by my team first. I got 4, you know, really successful people that I can text anytime and they can make these decisions, you know. And yeah, it's just being honest. And one of the biggest things that I learned is communication, communicating your fears. I'll tell people straight up, like, yo, my fear is that if I do this for you right now without a deposit, that you're gonna, you know, take my business and then just run away with it. That's my fear. And I think just being honest, and people are allowed to respond to those fears, to either validate it or say, you know what, I can't take this. So a lot of times I'm trying to be upfront and as brutally honest as I can and bounce these things off my team, you know. So that's you know, that's important, especially being independent, you know.
Yeah,
awesome.
Well, with the success you're having, I don't know if you'll be too dependent for too long, bro, but or hopefully you will be and be able to build a business around you. But we have a lot more to talk about with this, man. But I know we got to wrap up really quick. We're on a limited time on today's episode. But bro, we've got so much more to talk about. We got to know the ins and outs of where TikTok is. Like, we got to know, you know, seeing those opportunities, making sure you're getting yourself out there, like, and actually having the wherewithal to recognize where the media is, what type of things they're showing, and putting yourself in front of those things and being ready for opportunities as they come. So we're going to talk a whole lot more about that. We'll definitely have to have you on again, bro. But thank you again for joining us, man. Appreciate the work that you're doing. Where can people find you and hit you up?
They can find me anywhere at Trey Little. That's Tray, and last name Little, Little. Trey Little. Anywhere, just search that up and then you'll find me.
Awesome.
Cool, bro. We'll talk again real soon.
All right, for sure, man. Thank y'all.
Peace.
Man, I think that you can't underestimate the power of doing something consistently over time, because consistently over time is what prepares you. You can't, again, this is my talking to myself. I over research things. I over study things. I read so many books. If you look on my shelf right now, if you look at I'll watch hours and hours of YouTube videos before I actually start to go do something. But until you actually get in there and do something and then have that history and that experience, you're really not prepared for those opportunities, even when they do come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, getting to know Trey over the years, I think he has been an underestimated artist. A lot of people slept on him, even people that I worked with, and I was like, let's bring in Trey, and they'd be like, who's Trey? I'm like, I already knew he had what it took. He was an influencer. He is a communicator. He is a deep thinker. He's a learner. These are the things that, like, honestly make people successful over time, and he's reaping the benefits. So all the haters, all the people that didn't listen, yo, he's killing it. Now his price is going to go up for you. All right. So if you like today's episode, go ahead, like, subscribe, share this episode. This was great information, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. And feel free to shoot us a DM if you want to be a part of the Jam the Hype Society, where we're going to continue this conversation with other influencers and leaders in this industry that want to use their platform to lead people to the cross. So thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys again next week right here on Jam the Hype Live. Peace.